What is up, Deep Six Pro Wrestling Podcast fans? My name is Tommy Smith. Before we get into a little bit of a different episode here, why don't we start it with a little bit of music?
Agility from the champion. Oh, deep six! That could be it. Delivers this deep six.
What's going on, everybody? We are here for episode 51 of the Deep Six Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name's Tommy Smith. You may be wondering, where is Wayne? Wayne normally joins us here. He's the host of this show. He's not going to be able to join us this weekend. We miss him. We hope he gets feeling better. But today I'm bringing in two special guests, two of my best friends from college. Got Noah McCormick and Justin Vanover. These guys are huge wrestling fans, just like myself. And man, we just have fun with it. So guys, introduce yourselves. Tell me what got you guys into wrestling.
Justin, I'll let your beautiful face go first.
So growing up, my entire family watched wrestling. My dad, my stepdad, everybody there. So, I kind of grew up around it. And once I met old Tommy Boy here back in college, he kind of got me back into it. And now we absolute fiends when it comes to the wrestling.
Oh, you love to hear it. That's what I'm Noah. What's popping? That's what I started watching wrestling when I was a kid. Obviously got into it with my friends. Went to a bunch of live events as a kid. Went to the Royal Rumble in 2009. Very fitting for this podcast. I got my Royal Rumble 09 shirt on. 125.09. Never forget, boys. Never forget. Hell of a Rumble. And then kind of got out of it once I got, into high school. And then when me and Justin, we were out on tour with our band and just got drunk one night and decided to start rewatching again. It all kind of formed from there for me. So,
yeah, I mean, we got into, I remember Noah, me and you, I met through Justin, and Justin was my roommate in college, and we kind of all got around one night and watched some wrestling, and I think it was just it turned into like a monthly, weekly thing. We'd watch every pay-per-view, we'd do bets on who would win and all that stuff. It was some good times.
Definitely a good time. You still got who has the belt for the pay-per-view? I can't remember. Still Tommy?
I still won, man. Yeah.
I got that old US belt.
That's
I think
me,
Tommy
man.
Is currently in charge of it, but I think it's still in my possession.
I think it is in your possession, but I'll come get it at some point. But yeah, man, we're going to talk about 2021 wrestling, and, we got the Royal Rumble coming up in 16 days. It almost seems weird to think about that. I mean, the coronavirus started right around WrestleMania season, and ever since then, WWE, AEW, Impact, they've all ran shows without fans. We've seen the Thunderdome. We've seen AEW take place in Daly's place. What do you guys think the Royal Rumble will look like without fans? We are knowing that there isn't going to be fans there. They either are going to do it at the Thunderdome or they're going to do it someplace else. But I think the biggest thing about the Royal Rumble is the fans. I mean, you got the countdown. You just got people talking, and cheering on and getting excited for the surprise entrance. So what do you guys think is going to be the Royal Rumble? Like, how's it going to look this year without any fans in the crowd?
Well, I'm pretty interested to see how it goes down. I mean, listen, I think the one of the best parts about watching the Rumble is all the pops that you get to see out of the fans, out of surprise returns. And that's, I think, my favorite part. So I'm curious to see how that goes, with the automated pops and automated, sounds that they're having pumped into the Thunderdome. I mean, it's always fun. The Royal Rumble is by far my favorite pay-per-view every year. I'd like to see them move it somewhere besides the Thunderdome, just have it at least feel a little bit bigger. For me, the Thunderdome is kind of hard to watch. That's just my take, but I don't know. What do you feel, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll definitely be different. Just because, a big part of the Rumble is just like hearing everybody pop and, if somebody gets thrown out or somebody you didn't expect to be there. That's kind of like the biggest thing about it. It makes me curious as if there's going to be as many like the surprise entrants as there would be in past, just because with COVID and like having to get everybody tested and everything. And then, if somebody big comes back, like who's going to cheer for them? It's just going to be a little bit different, but I think it'll still be a good watch.
Yeah, I mean, coming off of last year, think back to some of the biggest Royal Rumble surprise entrants. I mean, you have Cena in the '08 Rumble. I mean, even for you, Noah, you got to see, RVD and McFoley come out.
Listen,
It- I-
when RVD came out,
2009.
that was one of the biggest pops I've ever seen in person. That was absolute nuts. I remember going to school the next day, trying to convince my friends that Rob Van Dam came back at the damn Rumble the night before, and they wouldn't believe me. So that was huge. Let's not forget, also in '09, Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Jim Duggan, that's
So-
correct.
So just a good old hey-o.
But yeah, I mean, last year, I mean, we were all sitting around watching it. I remember we were kind of a little bummed out with how Brock Lesnar was just kind of taking over the entire match. As we look at in the past, it was a really well-booked Rumble. I think there's a lot of good storylines throughout. And then I think it was number 19. I mean, you hear Edge's music and the entire place pops. I mean, that's just one of the coolest moments I remember having as a wrestling fan. So this year, who are you guys looking out for? I mean, is there anybody that you think could really surprise, again, the Thunderdome audience, I guess, or the people watching at home? Is there somebody that you guys think can maybe put WWE back on the map, especially with how well of a run AEW's been on?
Yeah, that's I mean, we can talk about that. I think someone that I think would get a good pop and would be kind of interesting to see is Carlito. I think he was I don't know if he was advertised or if he was something came out with reports of him. He was supposed to be there for Legends Night, but ended up not working out. So I can definitely see him coming back for the Rumble. I think even last year he was one of the guys who was rumored, but we ended up getting like MVP.
Which has led to one of the best
Yeah.
things going on in wrestling right now with the Hurt Business.
Exactly. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see if there's any kind of fun pops, like Justin said I don't know, with COVID and everything, getting guys tested. I'll be interested to see what kind of guys they can bring in for big pops.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it'd be good to see. I don't know if he's cleared yet or not, but I know Edge has his tricep injury that he's dealing with. So it'd be good to see him come back if he's even in there just for a few minutes. I wouldn't expect him to do anything with it because I feel like they're not done with the Randy Orton story with him.
But there's definitely one more in that.
Yeah,
which I think is fine. I think their greatest match ever at Backlash was a little bit overplayed, but I would definitely be down to see them, go at it again. And whether they can do that in front of crowds or whether they, hold off for, just WrestleMania and have it in front of the Thunderdome. I think ending that rivalry and kind of letting, both of them go on their own way is the best way. But I don't know if you should end it just as what it was at Backlash.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if they can do something. I mean, Orton's got that feud going on with Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, right now. So I can't imagine for how much time and effort they poured into that feud. Can't imagine they're just going to dump it as soon as we get to the Rumble here in like 2 weeks. I mean, I'd be fine with it, Yeah, I think Edge is a guy who could definitely come back. I would still pop. I mean, I'd still be hyped. So.
Yeah, somebody I've been thinking about. Sorry, just I didn't mean to cut you off, but someone I've been really thinking about to see. He's now a commentator for NXT. He never said he'd come back, but Wade Barrett. I think Wade Barrett would get a huge pop. I think he is the kind of wrestler that WWE needs at this point. Just another heel that hasn't been overused. I mean, we haven't seen Wade Barrett in WWE since I want to say 2015, 2016. So you have him come in, whether he goes as a heel or a face. He's just another guy that you'd like to see back in the ring. He's still at a pretty good age, and he looks to be in pretty good shape. So I really would be excited to hear him come back. Maybe as Bad News Barrett.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would love to see Samoa Joe get off the commentator's desk too again. I miss watching him.
That's another one that I was definitely going to say. I think some realistic guys who could be surprised are guys who have been on commentary, such as Samoa Joe, and I think Barrett could easily listen. I don't know how you guys felt about the whole Pat McAfee Adam Cole feud.
Yes,
but I'd love to see McAfee get in that Rumble.
He reminds me of somebody who would just sit on the outside and like pick his spot and then just get immediately eliminated. But man,
it'd still get a pop.
Those matches that he had, I think that's the thing, is a lot of people don't understand just how much he truly cares about the business, and it showed in those matches. I mean, the dude had every spot was almost perfect. He took one of the toughest moves in wrestling to almost make look good in the Panama Sunrise. And he really just, his talking, man. I mean, my co-host Wayne always talks about he's got the gift of gab. I mean, the dude can just talk. It's incredible how well he's transitioned into the world of wrestling while also holding on to that spot in the podcasting world.
Right, for sure. And then with like the Rumble, it's not just about who wins. You can further so many stories with it. You could do the whole, Undisputed Era, the Pete Dunne gang, whatever they're called. I've been keeping up too much with it, but if he pops out and like throws out Adam Cole or one of the Undisputed Era guys, if they're in it, you can just further so much more with it with that.
Are there any NXT guys you'd like to see hop into the Rumble this year?
I mean, outside of your normal few, because we've seen Gargano in the Rumble, we've seen Adam Cole. I really would like to see Kyle O'Reilly. I think he's been really shooting up the ranks of top wrestlers in the world. I mean, we all knew, we've talked about how much, I love Kyle O'Reilly. He's one of my favorites, but the dude can go in the ring, and he's had these matches with Finn Balor that have been absolutely killer. I mean, if these matches were in front of crowds, the pops, these would be up there. They're already up there at the top, takeover matches in history, but I think these would contend with, the likes of Banks and Bailey and Gargano and Andrade. I think that their matches have been absolutely incredible. Another guy who I'd like to see, I don't know, what people think about him, but Dexter Lumis, I think he's done a really good job kind of just playing that. He reminds me a little like Heidenreich, but better. Heidenreich just kind of played that out there character, the guy that didn't have to say much, but could just kind of give you a look and that he means business or know that he's ready to tell a story. I think he's a really good choice for somebody we could see in the Rumble.
Yeah, for sure. And then, you could do so much with him too. Just like, I don't know if the Fiend happens to pop up in the Rumble or something like that. You just have like the serial killer versus the supernatural spooky guy, like staring each other down and going at it for a minute would be crazy to watch.
That'd be a good moment. Yeah, man. I wanted to ask you, because we're talking about surprises, and this will kind of lead into one big surprise that I think we've all been hoping for, that I'm again sure it probably won't happen. But to segue from that, AEW came out with, has been on a hell of a run. Since the beginning, honestly, but especially since Corona started, Kenny Omega won the title. They've had a lot of good, pay-per-view style TV events. They just had the New Year's Smash. What do you guys think of AEW bringing in Sting to the point where does WWE have to have a really good Rumble to answer that? Because, the momentum, Sting coming out on that episode, I was watching it live. That's got to be one of the first moments I can remember in a long time where everybody in the wrestling world was like, this is so unexpected. Like, what the hell? What's going on here? So do you think that there's a move that WWE can make, or do they even have to? Do you think they'll still remain at the top to staying, to kind of balance out having Sting on AEW's roster?
I think the boys up north are a little bit in the hot seat. It's about to go down. I don't know, man. Like, that's what I was talking with Justin earlier, and I definitely think that AEW definitely has a better product right now. I did not expect them to continue to stay so hot. They started off extremely hot with all the, from Double or Nothing to all that, just putting out really great stuff. And then once we kind of got into the COVID era, kind of started to hit a rut because you could kind of tell they didn't really know what they wanted to do in terms of a no crowd. Kind of with the, Matt Hardy coming in and the Exalted One, Brody Lee. And just kind of some stuff like that where you could tell it was definitely meant for crowds. It just wasn't quite working out. But now that they've kind of had this partnership with Impact, I think I don't think they're so much focused on, I don't think they ever were focused on taking WWE down. But you can definitely tell that they're focusing on just putting out a great product that they think is fun and they're having fun making.
Right, for sure. And I think when they look at it, like, yeah, of course they're doing big things and like they've established themselves as one of like the top wrestling promotions in the short time they've been around. It's incredible, but like I don't think they're looking to overtake WWE. Of course they'd like to be the biggest one, everybody would, but I think their goal is not to beat WWE because they don't have the star power to do it yet. Even their biggest stars are all former WWE guys with John Moxley and Chris Jericho, and even Sting was in WWE for a few years there. So like, that's more of a focus on building their stars first before they even make an attempt to do that.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like you said, a lot of their big stars are WWE guys, or had a stint in WWE or anything like that. But you got Kenny Omega. He was mainly a New Japan Pro Wrestling guy. Worked a lot on the Indies. But right now, when I think about it, if I say to myself, okay, WWE has to make a big move that can get them back in that talking point. And Justin, you made a good point. I don't think AEW is ever going to beat WWE. I mean, WWE's been a brand, for almost 40, 50 years now. A top brand. WrestleMania's been going on. They're entering episode number 37 this year. I mean, WWE's always going to be at the top because they've built themselves that way. They've earned the respect of wrestling fans, and they've earned the amount of success that they've had. But I really do think if there's any year to do it, I think this is the year CM Punk comes back.
Nah, I don't think he comes back without a crowd.
You don't think so?
No.
You think he's going to play it like The Rock would?
Yeah, he ain't coming back without no crowd. He's looking for that pop for sure. As a guy who runs in and sees CM Punk in my local Target all the time, let me tell you, he's always in. He's always in self-checkout. I know. I look at him, and sometimes he'll look at me, and I'm like, I know you're not coming back this year, but next year, he wants that pop. I can see it in his eyes.
Yeah, I think he wants that pop, but I don't know. It's just the amount of, the time that's gone on. I think, what it's been since 2014. He left it before the 2014 Rumble. But man, I really think that now is the time to just do it, man. You pay him the money.
The pressure is definitely on.
Yeah, it definitely
to
is.
do it.
Nah, they don't need to worry about it. They got Goldberg.
Bro. I'll say it. Goldberg's a stooge. Nobody wants that old flappy ass in the ring.
I remember.
No, but for sure, I think. Oh, sorry, Tommy. But
no, you're good. Keep going, man.
Like, with AEW bringing in Sting, WWE having somebody coming in and that established big star that everybody across the wrestling world knows would be absolutely huge. But as Punk said, it's going to take a ridiculous amount of money, and I think for someone like him, he knows how over he would be with the crowd. That, like, as Noah said, he's not going to want to do it without a pop. So I don't know how Vinnie Mac's going to ever talk him out of doing it.
I mean, it's just the adage, everybody can fix their past problems. We've seen it with Ultimate Warrior. We've seen it even with Hulk Hogan. I mean, everybody has come back most people who have come back who's had a problem. So if you don't see Punk, I mean, do we see AJ Lee? I think that's one of the things with, the Women's Rumble
more
is
realistic.
Yeah, I think the Women's Rumble, they have a great amount of women on the roster, and they don't use all of them on NXT, and I think that's where you can start filling up those spots. But we've kind of seen the same legends, Molly Holly, Trish Stratus return in the last few years in the Women's Royal Rumble. So I think AJ Lee could be a really good spot, and she could almost win it. I honestly would be quite interested in her coming back and getting a win in her return match in 5 years.
I'd love to see her come back in just to put somebody over, put over a young talent.
Yeah, that would be great. And, I think part of the issue when you say, you see the same legends is WWE's past with female performers is not fantastic. So there's not many legends they can bring back for the Rumbles.
Yeah, I was watching that Legends night, and it's just, oh, man. Tori Wilson, and no disrespect to Tori Wilson. I mean, she still looks great. I remember watching her as a kid.
Don't disrespect that lady.
I just remember, watching her as a kid, but it's just like, I was sitting there thinking, I was like, man, is that really all they could get? I mean, is it just Tori Wilson? They had Melina which is fine, a good to her too. But I mean, just like, you're right, Justin, they really have not treated, and I mean, we all know this, the Divas Revolution started in 2014, 2015, and ever since then, they've gotten their earnings. I think, we saw WrestleMania 35, the main event, but...
What do you think about Rousey coming back? Rousey coming back for the Rumble.
That would be big.
That's
I
realistic.
could see that. And that's something that a lot of people aren't talking about. At least a lot of people that I've spoken to I haven't talked about. I mean, that'd be a spot, and I think she could win. I think she'd be a good challenger for the title.
I think that's a realistic thing where she could come in, maybe I'd love to see her. A feud with Shayna Baszler. I think that would be
incredible, yeah.
the feud of the year.
How do you get the title on Baszler though?
That's a good question.
You finally push her like they should have been doing from the start.
I mean, look at what they did at Elimination Chamber last year. You do the same thing.
That's true. Yeah, that could be a good one. I would also be interested in a Sasha Rousey. I really love Sasha Banks. I think she does excellent work in the ring, and I think she can kind of help Rousey on the mic. And I mean, those two could put on a hell of a match at WrestleMania. But I also still want to see. I don't know why. I mean, their Hell in a Cell match was great, but I don't know why they wasted that Banks versus Bayley feud that early. I mean, that has WrestleMania written all over. I mean, these people have been fighting since NXT. I mean, their careers are basically parallel. So I don't know. That's my take on it. But I mean, I would definitely expect to see. I think Rousey could be a good choice for the Royal Rumble return.
I think there's also the possibility of, like Becky Lynch coming back even. Like, that'd be a huge name if they could get her to do so. I know she's at home taking care of the baby, but, they bring her back even if it's just for a couple shows here and there. That'd be big for them, too.
Seth can watch her. Get Seth and Travis Brown to watch the kids in the backstage, and there you go. Before we go on, I just want to say we got a fan from the UK showing in. Thanks for watching. We're really excited to have you guys. This is a special episode, my first time ever hosting, so yeah, man, we're enjoying it. But yeah, talking about the Royal Rumble, I mean, I think my biggest gripe with it is, I mean, you said it, Goldberg. I mean, why is he in
the
a
dude's
match?
a stooge.
I get having him in the match. I know that he, if you look at the minute by minute and, hour by hour stuff, he does bring ratings. But, I mean, that match, I don't know if you guys caught it, that Drew McIntyre, Keith Lee match on Raw a few weeks ago, on Legends Night, was absolutely incredible. I mean, that match is, even if we all knew Keith Lee wasn't going to win, but put Keith Lee in the Rumble. I mean, put him on that card, and I mean, there have been some really good matches. I remember, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, it was Baron Corbin versus Roman Reigns, and they kind of just fought all around the entire baseball stadium.
That was last year.
It was last year, yeah, okay. So they did the spot on the dugout, on top of the dugout, and I really enjoyed that. So, I mean, Keith Lee and him could have a hell of a match, last man standing or something, but, man, Goldberg, I mean, what do you do in this situation? You either have McIntyre lose, and Goldberg, faces whoever wins the Rumble and looks bad, or Goldberg loses and looks like a punk and makes everybody else who he's beaten, The Fiend, Undertaker, all these past guys in the last few years, look even worse. So I don't know. That's just tough for me to
Or the more
understand.
realistic thing, have Brock Lesnar come in, piss everybody off, and make me start rooting for Goldberg again.
You wouldn't like Lesnar coming back?
I mean, that's the most predictable thing. I mean, you can definitely see him coming into the Rumble.
Yeah, I think he's going to do a Money in the Bank style thing when he ran in a few years ago.
Just beats the shit out of someone, then walks in.
Exactly. Takes the title and comes in at 30 and everybody's already eliminated. He just walks in the ring and it's over. Justin, what are your thoughts on Goldberg? Versus McIntyre.
I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. I know they have him on contract for what is it, like 3 or 4 matches a year, like something.
Yeah, something like that.
It seems like his entire shtick is comes in, wins the title, loses it at Mania, repeat.
I mean, who does he even fight? I mean, if Goldberg...
I mean, it's the same thing we got last year. I don't want a repeat of the exact same thing that we got last year.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'll do something crazy where Miz will cash in the Money in the Bank or something after a spear or whatever, but it'll just... I don't know how you save it.
See, now that's what I'm thinking. Honestly, I think McIntyre gets the win, but it's by, the skin of his teeth. Goldberg gets all pissed off and beats the shit out of him after the match. And then you have the Miz come down, cash in his Money in the Bank, and then you have a triple threat at WrestleMania with Miz, McIntyre, and the Rumble winner. Because in that way, you can do it to where Miz is a good wrestler. I mean, he doesn't get a lot of respect. I think he's put on some really good matches in his career, and that way he can take the pin at WrestleMania to either give, whether it's the Royal Rumble winner or McIntyre the title.
Yeah, and Miz has been around long enough that he's certified enough as a star, an upper mid card guard that you can put in that position. If he even cashes in and wins the title, like nobody's going to complain about him having it for a few months, to bring somebody else over. I know they've been pushing Shinsuke pretty hard, it seems, but something like that, like a Shinsuke Miz match or something like that. If Shinsuke would happen to win the Rumble again, that'd be crazy.
Gosh, I remember when he won the Rumble. It was almost like finally all wrestling fans' dreams came true, and then they had that stinker of a match at WrestleMania where he won by kicking him in the dick.
Listen, nothing wins more than the dick kick. You got to go direct, you go straight up out of town. He's done. I don't know. Who do you guys realistically see winning the Rumble? Like if you had to lock in a pick right now.
Justin, I'll let you answer because I got to think about this one.
Yeah,
I'm going Lesnar. I'm going Lesnar.
Really? That's your lock-in.
Lesnar.
Oh yeah, he's coming back. It makes too much sense. It makes too much sense for him to come in Lesnar, Goldberg, and McIntyre in a triple threat.
Now I could be down with that. That could honestly be pretty good.
Lesnar comes back. It's a huge finisher blowout. Everyone's hitting their moves. Lesnar ends up pinning Goldberg. That's the Mania match. And then
4 minutes of German suplexes and Claymore.
Yeah. And then
F5s.
And then that leads into where I don't know. I mean, if he gets it, is he going after Roman instead? I mean, after the whole Paul Heyman thing? I mean, there's a couple different ways you can go down with it.
That's a good story to tell.
But did they want to do Roman Reigns heel versus Brock Lesnar? Like, who's the face there? Like, it just
that's true. You almost have to go with a guy like no, not Big E. He's got the IC belt. I can't see them making him fucking Big E 2 belts.
Big E 2 belts. No, I'd be down with it.
Brutal.
Let's be honest. They're not putting 2 belts on that guy. I'm okay with it.
They should, but they won't.
Bingo.
I could see, even somebody like Bobby Lashley, even more like a dark horse contender for it would be great. The Hurt Business has been fantastic, and if you have him, MVP, Cedric Alexander, and Shelton Benjamin all at the same time, like working together, you could, get one of them to the Final Four even, and I would not be mad about Bobby Lashley being there at the end.
Who do you think realistically could face Reigns at Mania, heel or face wise? Because like you said, the heel aspect doesn't really work. Even though I think you could borderline, it'd be hard as shit to do. But if you try to turn Brock face with him coming back and going after Paul, it'd be a hell of an idea.
It's been 17 years since that man's been face.
Yeah, and when they've done things where he like isn't just like standing there menacingly while
the Brock party.
Yeah, the Brock party was great. I loved him dancing.
That's so funny.
It was like good just to see him have even the shred of personality. Like you could do it. I mean, I don't know who you're going to get to talk for him because nobody wants to hear him open his mouth. But
and that's the thing is like when Lesnar wants to work, I mean, we've seen him have some pretty shit matches in the past, but when he wants to work, I mean, look at his matches at Survivor Series the past few years with AJ and Daniel Bryan. I mean, they're excellent. They're some of the best matches of the year. So I like Lesnar returning, but I think it gives somebody an even bigger rub if they can eliminate him. Then you go on to have that kind of mid-card match, maybe not to the extent of him versus Ambrose, which was a total stinker at WrestleMania 32, but something where they can both. I'd love to see Keith Lee. I mean, if Keith Lee versus Lesnar is something that happens, I mean, we saw that they kind of planted the seeds last year, and that's something that should be done. I mean, that is a match that I think a lot of people would want to see. I'm almost convincing myself that might be what goes down.
I think that's realistic. That's a realistic Mania match. Triple threat between McIntyre, Lee, and Lesnar.
And even, Keith Lee Lesnar, there doesn't have to be a title involved for it. Like,
exactly.
Brock Lesnar is a big enough name that, like, he doesn't have to have a title. They're going to put a title on him because he's Brock Lesnar. But, like, if you didn't and you, for whatever reason, they decided to put Lee over, like, that would do so much for Keith Lee.
Can you imagine them putting Lee over, though?
No, absolutely not. But just, like, I mean, even taking him to, like, say he hits Lesnar with a couple spirit bombs or something, like, even doing that would be huge for him.
Speaking of Lee, my co-host Wayne is got a little bit of an idea for WrestleMania. He thinks that they're going to go with Sheamus, Keith Lee, and Drew McIntyre in a triple threat. What do you guys think of Sheamus coming? I mean, Sheamus is kind of
Wayne. I respect the hell out of you. I'm on your show for crying out loud. Get Sheamus off my screen. I don't want to see it. Guy's a stooge.
Yeah, but Sheamus has been he's kind of been back and forth with McIntyre. I mean, they've had a little bit of relationship, and him and Keith Lee would be a good combination too.
I think the potential is there if he would have came back strong. They came back and they put him with with Jeff Hardy and pouring piss in his face. I mean, I got no respect for the guy anymore.
Yeah, I mean, with that, like, I feel like Sheamus is not seen as a serious contender anymore. You know, you can definitely stick him in like a main event match. Like, he's been around forever. Like, he's another guy that's a veteran. They've been there, done that. He's won championships before. You know, you could put him in the match, but like nobody realistically
put their money.
It's Keith Lee versus Drew McIntyre at that point with Sheamus hanging out.
And Sheamus taking the pin.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing with wrestling. I mean, even if you know going in, like, who's going to win, like, you know, most 9 out of 10 times you knew John Cena was going to win. But that 1 out of 10 times where you actually thought, okay, maybe there's just a slight chance. You want to give that other wrestler even the slimmest of chances to kind of put the belief in people that they can, you know, finish the match and come away with the win.
Yeah, remember when we all thought AJ was going to win Money in the Bank, and then it stumbles down and falls into Otis's hands?
Otis wins.
Look where that got us. So I don't want to.
Listen, fantasy booking Otis versus Roman Reigns for the championship right now. Let's do it.
Oh, God. I would almost rather see Sheamus.
Tucky throws out Brock Lesnar for Otis.
Speaking of Tucker,
rolls the rope down. Dude, who knows? I mean, once they broke them up, I think that's, you know, we talked about it last week, one of the biggest travesties that's been this year for WWE is how they broke up the Iconics. And I think that's kind of a thing. I was
just about to say, that I don't think Creative knows what the hell they're doing with the tag team division.
Creative hasn't known what they're doing for tag team division since like the 90s. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man.
The Hardy Bros.
I don't there was some bad, you know what, thinking about it, there were some bad tag teams when we were growing up. I mean, when we were all watching in like 2000.
Dude, let's not forget about Festus and Jesse, okay? We're talking about two top of the line industry
Luke
standard
Gallows?
Guys. Nah, man, that ain't Gallows. That's Festus. You hear that bell ringing, you're a running because that guy's got one vision and it's knocking your ass to the ground.
So on Dynamite, it wasn't Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows coming out. It was Carl Anderson and Festus this past week.
You saw how angry the guy was. There must have been a bell. I mean, dude, if he can make it back with a successful career after having that gimmick, I got nothing but respect for the guy.
I mean, come on, Kane played a dentist. And now he's a mayor. I mean,
the guy's got everything in his book.
Exactly. Jeez, that's the thing. I think with let's move into that. Let's move into AEW. I mean, we'll talk about how successful they've been. We mentioned that, but give me a prediction. I mean, AEW we've talked about has been on a really hot streak, but what is something that you guys think could happen this year? You brought up the fact that Impact has kind of aligned themselves. We saw Kenny Omega appear on Impact. He's going to appear on their Hard to Kill pay-per-view with the
Good Brothers.
The Good Brothers, yeah. Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows versus, I know they just took out one of the Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley, or Chris Sabin, but Moose has been replaced. Moose replaces him. What do you guys think is something that we could see? I mean, does AEW buy Impact? Does Impact and AEW merge and we see the creation of a second? I mean, they talked about a second show, but does Impact become that second show? I mean, what do you guys think is a wild prediction for 2021 in AEW?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's necessarily wild, but I would love to see, not necessarily they merge or one buys the other or anything like that, but like the two separate shows, like having, like for example, if you did like a Sami Callihan versus Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship, like that would be incredible. Like something along those lines where you would assume Kenny Omega is going to win it. They're not going to put the AEW title on a TNA guy, but like having matches like that where you're like defending the championships across the different, the shows, it'd be awesome.
I mean, It goes back to old territory wrestling. I mean, if you look at how AEW has been, I mean, they've done stuff with NWA, they've done stuff with Impact. It sounds like they're probably going to do stuff with New Japan eventually. You'd like to think. I mean, it's kind of all these small guys coming together to just put on the best product and the best show that they can, while the big boy in town is looking like, we can't put together a fucking show.
Yeah, I mean, when Moxley is I think he's IWGP US champion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he said at Wrestle Kingdom, he's ready. Whoever comes out of that match, and they're gonna fight him at the Tokyo Dome. Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that you brought up the territory days, and I think that's a really good, thought. I think we're going to see a super show of some sort. I think there will be an Impact versus AEW type match.
Survivor Series type of, brand warfare.
Yes, and that's the thing is, it almost surprises me that Survivor Series is still a top 4 pay-per-view, because when it comes down to it, yeah, everybody knows that it's red versus blue, but at the end of the day, it's WWE. I mean, at the end of the day, they're taking off their shirts and they're going, well, I'm still getting paid by WWE. It's not, nobody really cares. I mean, they've done it well a few times.
The best Survivor Series in recent memory is when they did the 3 brands
with NXT.
Yeah.
Oh my
and
God.
It made you actually feel like they were fighting for something. They're fighting for what they represent.
I remember we were all sitting there texting during it. We were all watching it. I mean, that was, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, even with Survivor Series now, like, for a while they were doing, there was not really a brand split anyways, where, like, guys are popping up on both. Like, there's no, like, feeling of, like, Raw and SmackDown are separate things anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't feel like any of the guys have, like, there's no loyalty to SmackDown for any reason except they're telling you put on a blue shirt and go wrestle these guys. Like,
yeah.
I mean, shit, Big Show, like, ripped off his SmackDown shirt one time. He's wearing an ECW shirt, and then, like, 2 weeks later, he's appearing on Raw. I mean, it just doesn't, I don't know. I think that's what you do with AEW. I don't know. There's some sort of stipulation that you could do. Maybe the championship at some point gets vacated, and the winner gets the AEW championship, or, something. There's a trade or some kind of thing that you can do, but you can have people actively invested in that pay-per-view, There's stakes on the line. It's almost what, on a smaller scale, what the Invasion should have been. Having... Yeah. Obviously, everybody knew WWE was going to win, but, again, it's that little thought that, well, WCW could maybe pull it off. So maybe, little brother in Impact, who's got a really solid roster, they got a lot of good pieces, maybe they surprise people and beat AEW, and they... get a promotion to AEW or something like that. The wrestlers who win their matches get a promotion or something. I think that's the thing that you have to go with the way that they've been building it, is that you have kind of a super show between the two companies.
Yeah, I'd love to see that a once-a-year show where, you're putting everybody's best. I still think, that meme from that Survivor Series when it was NXT versus SmackDown and Raw, where it was the idea of having Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, versus Brock Lesnar versus Adam Cole, who were all their respective champions at that time. That match would have blown my mind. Like, that would have been an iconic match.
That would have been good. I mean, me and Justin were just talking about the other day, speaking of Adam Cole, when are they ever going to do this Fatal 4-Way? I mean, they have to at some point do an Undisputed Era match. I mean, it just has... I mean, that is money. I mean, that is literally...
That's a WrestleMania caliber match.
You could build a whole takeover off that match. I mean, I'd pay to watch those 2 go for 2 hours, or watch those 4 go for 2 hours. I mean, that would be just a hell of a match. I just wonder, if it gets to that point, because we know that Britt Baker is in AEW. That's Adam Cole's wife. If Adam Cole, kind of remains stagnant, we've heard a lot of WWE guys recently haven't been signing new contracts. A lot of people have turned down contracts. There could be a big mass exodus of people who leave for, AEW. I think one of the big ones that me and Justin have talked about, and I know all 3 were fans of, is Aleister Black.
That's what I was just about to say. Who are 3 people you can see going to AEW this year? And number 1 on my board is Aleister Black.
Yeah, and I mean, even if it's not AEW, I mean, you see AEW getting that working relationship with Impact now. Like, that's only going to help Impact grow as well. Like, TNA used to be something, but then, it fell off the charts for however long, and now you see them working with AEW, and people are like, oh, Impact still exists? Like,
yeah.
People forgot about them, and now, like, you could see people going there, especially if they're working with AEW. Like,
yeah.
the guys are like, I want to work at AEW, but can't get a contract there. If they get a contract with, Impact, like they can still have that working relationship with the company to maybe go there at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think even with Black, I mean, you look at the fact of how he, gosh, I mean, he just really hasn't been used at all. I remember I honestly think the last time we saw him, last time I remember seeing him, was him getting thrown off the building by Baron Corbin at the Money in the Bank. I mean, with respect to Brody Lee, one of the best wrestlers in all of wrestling, and I don't know what they're gonna do, with the Dark Order and how they're gonna work that story. If they needed to, and again, with respect to Brody Lee, nobody can play that
it'd be
part.
a hard thing to do.
If they did decide to go for another leader, maybe don't call him the Exalted One. I don't think you don't go that way. It's the same thing with his son. His son is -1. He is the TNT champion. He holds that belt for life. But if you were to go for another leader, and you wanted shock value, man, Aleister Black just sounds like a hell of a guy who could lead that group.
See, I can see that down the line, maybe in 6-8 months. I think the more realistic thing is turning the Dark Order face, which I think is pretty easily done right now. And I think easily you could turn Colt Cabana into the leader of that group.
Really, Colt Cabana? That's I don't know how to think about that one.
I think he's got the most star power out of everybody in that group.
Really?
I mean, you'd love to see a guy like John Silver.
John Silver, that's who I was going to say. I love John Silver.
I'd love to see John Silver, really lead the charge there. But I think with a guy as big as Colt Cabana, who has a following like him, I think he's easily, he's a respected guy in the industry. He's a face. Even when he went to the Dark Order, it didn't make a lot of sense. But if you're turning them face, I think, you don't have to have Exalted One, anything like that. I mean, if you watch Being the Elite, almost everything they're doing is a comedy bit. So I think that goes hand in hand where Colt Cabana could fill that role.
Thank you, Noah. I was just about to throw in my weekly. If you haven't watched BTE, you should, because it is absolutely hilarious. I mean, John Silver is absolutely the best part of Being the Elite every single week.
Dude, seeing him in the Brody Lee ring gear, but just like half scale because he's such a small dude.
Small.
Dude, I couldn't get over the mind fuck that was like just trying to like that tiny man
is just sitting in there. He's got the huge arms too, man. I mean, that dude is ripped. He can go in the ring too. I mean, that guy can absolutely wrestle.
For sure. That's what I mean. Who else can you guys see going to AEW? I think a guy like Ricochet kind of almost makes sense.
He just signed a new contract.
Did he just end up signing?
Till 2024.
Oh, damn. Because I know there was a lot of talks on whether or not he had re-signed. I didn't know that he had just re-signed.
From what I've heard, he signed a new contract for
that guy,
2024.
That guy's screwed.
Exactly.
You have these guys that are like obviously like incredible talents and everybody loves that WWE knows that like if they went somewhere else, like they'd be happy to go somewhere else if they're going to get this push. They're just going to throw so much money at these guys to keep them on board that like, like a Ricochet, for example, like if he went to AEW, he's going to get, not necessarily pushed to the moon, but like he's going to do better for himself there wrestling wise.
He'll be like Ray and Phoenix, Death Triangle.
Yeah. Dude, I'm saying they don't. I mean, the tag team division at AEW, they almost need 2 belts at this point because they're so stacked. But listen, you throw Matt Sydal and Ricochet into like they used to be back in the day, and PWG.
That would be a good one. That would be good.
Yeah, I see a lot of really good things for these guys because like you either stay with WWE, like if you're a Ricochet, they're going to throw so much money. Like he's going to be set financially, or he can go have better wrestling. Like either way, like he can make that decision and be fine because he's going to get matches and like he's going to be over with the fans either way. So like a guy like him, you could see him going, but him staying there doesn't shock me either.
He's got the best sell of the RKO in the biz. I mean,
don't you remember when they tried to make us believe that he could go in a match with Brock Lesnar and he got beaten like 10 seconds at was it a Saudi show, I think, or something like that?
I think it was
ridiculous.
But then again, we also had Kofi, lose. They advertised it so big on the first SmackDown on Fox, and Kofi didn't even get a move of offense. And WWE really does not know that. I'll let you guys know. we don't really we love WWE on here, but we definitely give them a lot of shit for their creative
Dude, they
each
deserve
week,
it.
but they deserve
every
it. I
single
mean,
ounce of it.
and that's the thing. Me and Wayne talk about it a lot. It's like their weekly SmackDown's been on a really good roll recently. Ever since Reigns turned heel, they've just been solid TV. I mean, there's been great matches, great storyline development, but Raw is an absolute slog to get through. I mean, somebody put it best. You're writing a Lord of the Rings movie every single week. I mean, you're writing 3 hours worth of television. Nobody wants to sit through that shit. And it's like, they have such bad TV, but ever since the coronavirus, I mean, their pay-per-views have been from pretty good to great. I mean, every single pay-per-view has had a match or a storyline or something happen that's like, damn, that's pretty impressive. Everything has been they've done a really good job. And it's just like, how do you have such good pay-per-views but have such shit TV? I mean, AEW, it's like they have great TV every week, and their pay-per-views, while a little long, they can be a little bit of a tough watch sometimes, are great. I mean, they're always putting on excellent matches.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, when WWE does something right, it is so right and it's so good, but, like, they just don't ever do it. So when they do, it's even better because
it's always one step forward, two steps back.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. It's like I want to be excited for the Rumble. I want to be, and I am. Of course I am. And this is the best part to be the best time to be a wrestling fan is during WrestleMania
Beginning of the year.
Yeah, exactly. The beginning of the year. But it's just like, and Noah, you said it earlier. Watching with the Thunderdome, it's tough. It definitely has taken the value out of some moments. I think when you look at Undertaker's farewell, he deserves such. Yeah. They did a great job. I think they did a fantastic job for the limitations that they had. But Undertaker, I mean, outside of The Rock and John Cena, I mean, I think those three are the three names that you could say to anybody, and they know who they are. Not even being a wrestling fan, and that's the thing is, Undertaker's career deserves such a good send-off. And while he did get a good one, it should have come with in front of fans. And it's just like, the Royal Rumble, it's weird. Looking back at last year, we see fans in the crowd and people popping for the Edge thing, and it's like this year, it's not going to be there. There's not going to be that that fan interaction.
Can you imagine Edge coming back this year instead of last year? And like
he's just looking at the screens.
Yeah, that's not going to get a pop. That's why I in no way, shape, or form can see Punk coming back during this era without fans.
Maybe that's okay. Maybe Punk is a little bit too far out there, but I definitely think we're gonna see somebody big because I just think the WWE knows that they have to have an answer. And
who do you think? Who do you think they go get then? I think the biggest surprise. I mean, that would make sense. I mean, who are you going to throw him up against? I mean, are you going to have him go into Mania, or are you just going to have him just do a one-off?
I mean, of course, it depends on his filming. Stuff, and I know that he's filming the Suicide Squad prequel show for his character at some point, but I don't know. I mean, there's again maybe Keith Lee. I mean, maybe if Keith Lee doesn't get in it, Keith Lee and John Cena would be a great rub. I mean, I know Cena is definitely in the time where he's down to give people that boost, that personality or character.
Would you like to see Firefly Funhouse round 2?
Yes, but I think the Firefly Funhouse, I think that just has to be saved for... I honestly think I could say that we can see that with Randy Orton. If they continue that feud up until Mania, I know we talked about Edge and Orton. I could see them doing another... Because, I mean, you have a lot of things. I mean, you could have him, winning the title at SummerSlam 04, with his short little haircut and the Legend Killer thing and... Yeah. The Nexus, or not the Nexus, the Legacy. I mean, there's a lot of spots that you could do with him. I think the Firefly Funhouse...
Winning the Rumble in 09, baby? I was there.
Exactly. I think for the Firefly Funhouse, it's just something that you just have to do so sparingly. I think that's just the kind of match that you can maybe do once every 2 years or something like that. You have to keep it.
Got to be careful with it because you can't overdo.
and that's the thing you were talking about. Who do I think could win the Rumble? I think somebody who I know won't win the Rumble is the Fiend. He just doesn't need it. I mean, he's already won the title, and he didn't really even need the title at the point that he won it. And if he sure as hell didn't need to lose it the way he did, but the Fiend is such a good character, and Bray
I'm
Wyatt
so
has
pissed
done.
about Hell in a Cell with Seth. I've never been so disappointed.
We were all at Justin's apartment, and even Alec was
rough.
upset. Even our buddy Alec was
That was
frustrated.
the longest drive home I've ever had.
We were all, I remember sitting in the car.
That was a quiet car ride home. I'll tell you that, because I was like, I'm fucking pissed. I'm not saying shit. It's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing. WWE just doesn't. They just don't know what to do sometimes, and that's it. It's incredible how wealthy they are with talent, and how poorly they do with said talent. It's just I think CM Punk put it best. And again, respect to Vince McMahon, he's built this company for what it is, but he surrounds himself with a bunch of douchebag yes men who will listen to what he has to say and, do whatever he wants. And that's the thing, is you have so much talent and so many. You talked about AEW's tag team division. I mean, they start every damn show with a tag team match, and it normally is the best match on the card. I mean,
Damn good match.
and it's like WWE has good talent, or can put. We've heard of strange bedfellows before. I mean, they've put random ass people together, and it's been great. And it's like, excuse me, why aren't you using this talent that you have? If you can't put them in the main event, if you can't put them going after a secondary title, put them in a tag team. I mean, use them as something to just give your division. I mean, every single week it seems like we're getting, back in the summer, it was Street Profits and the Viking Raiders every single week. And now it is Street Profits or the New Day versus the Hurt Business every single week. And it's just like, dude, like, come on. Like, there's got to be somebody else in the back who isn't getting a spot.
Yeah.
They have so much talent that, like, they can afford to not put the same people on TV every week. Like, you could do so much, and then people won't get sick of everybody. They'll be excited to see something new, and you have so many options you could do, and it's just Kevin Owens gets beat up by Roman Reigns every week. Just the same thing over and over and over again.
How are you supposed to leave Kevin Owens as a good challenge if he's just getting his ass kicked every single week?
Well, that's the thing. I would normally be all stoked, for a Kevin Owens type of match, especially with Reigns. I think those are two guys who could really go at it. But I mean, this feud hasn't really shown me anything, and I don't want to see it go over into Mania. So that's why I can't wrap my head around who they want to try and pin up against Reigns. I'd love to see, if we were going to have an in-person WrestleMania where we were supposed to, and Hollywood, it makes no other sense than to bring back The Rock.
The Rock, exactly.
It makes there's no reason why that shouldn't have been a thing. But with the limitations that are at hand, I mean, what are you going to do? You can't drag this out for a whole nother year, with Reigns without it being stale.
Who do you think, proverbial? Let's just go into the future. Let's say, we've heard the rumors. It hasn't been even made official. I mean, they haven't even announced whether they're doing it in Hollywood or doing it in Tampa this year or whatever. But let's say next year they push everything back a year. They go to Tampa this year, Hollywood next year. They build it. Perfect story. I mean, Rock's final match, win or lose, whatever. Who wins? I mean, Reigns versus Rock. I mean, that's basically, in my opinion, I think that's the one dream match that you have left of the current stars that you have. Obviously, there will be, Reigns and Styles and, all these guys are going to be legends in their time in the future, but, and Rollins and, Kevin Owens and all that. But who wins? I mean, Reigns versus Rock is just a tough match to book in my view.
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to be Rock's last match, you have to put Reigns over. Like, it does two things. One, you go out on your back in wrestling. That's just how it goes.
Exactly.
Kurt Angle, Ric Flair, everybody. So I mean, he goes out with the loss. He puts Reigns over. It kind of passes the torch as like the family member as well. There's so much that it does for Reigns. Like, even though he's like the guy that's established already, like, it just does so much more for him.
I think if it's a title match, you definitely have to put Reigns over. If it's a non-title match, though, if somehow Rock can cost Reigns the title, like halfway through next year, and it builds up to Mania for next year, I can see that with Rock going out. Rock going out on top, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is I think we can build it you talked about you can't really keep this head of the table storyline going for a whole nother year without it getting stale. Maybe. I mean, they've done a hell of a job with the storyline, so far, and I'm interested to see what they continue to do. But man, let's say SummerSlam, you have fans back in some capacity. If you hear The Rock's music come down, I mean, or he just shows up, and Cost reigns the title, and that sets up, I mean, they've done the year long feud thing before. They did it with Cena and Rock back in 28. I mean, man, I don't know if that match needs a title. I think that is something that you can kind of do a grudge match towards, but I just The Rock is a great character, and I agree with you, Justin, in the fact that you go out on your back. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you do in wrestling. I mean, but it's The Rock. I mean, if there's one person to put an end to the head of the table and kind of, give Reigns that comeuppance that he deserves, it's The Rock. I mean, he is that guy, and that builds so much Hollywood credibility. I mean, you obviously get all the, national media and everything like that coming with that fight, but I just can't see The Rock losing that match if it's not for a title.
Yeah, and I mean, even we're talking, if it likely won't happen this year if they do it in Tampa. If they do Hollywood, if it would get pushed back, like you could do so much with that, with like the Usos or like a Rikishi or something getting involved and costing Reigns or something like that. It just build more story from there and just keep it going because just so much you can do with it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that you can do with it, and that's the thing is just in general with WWE, there's so much that you can do that they just continue to try not to do. It seems like they almost, I remember somebody brought it up. I saw it on Twitter. It was like 2 years ago. WWE is just they brought out Triple H, Shane, Vince, and Stephanie, and they were like, we're going to start listening to the fans. The numbers have dropped, since they
not once.
Nothing has happened that's really been different, and it's just like it seems like I got back into wrestling. I think I took a break in 2009 and got back into it in late 2010, 2011. It's just like it doesn't seem that anything's really changed. It was always a Cena show up until about 2015, 2016, and then it's been the Shield. It's really been those three guys that have
Reigns show.
And that's not a problem. That's not to say that any of these guys, any of those four lack talent, because obviously they're all stars and legends in their own right, but there's just so much. I mean, WWE is in talks to sign Jay White from New Japan, and it's just like, yeah, that's great because Jay White is such a phenomenal wrestler. But we've seen this gig, even 5 years
what they're
ago.
Gonna do? They're not going to throw him into a main event picture. They're going to throw him down into NXT.
Yeah.
And then, in 5 years, when they're finally realize, okay, maybe we should bring this guy up, even though he should have been brought over from day one, they don't know what to do with the guy.
Yeah.
We've seen this happen over and over again. I've been calling for Adam Cole to be brought up to the main roster for a hot minute now.
But do you really want him to?
That's the thing. I mean, what are they going to do with him? They're just going to feed him to the fishes.
Yeah, he's not the big guy that Vince loves. Like, he's nowhere near the size of like a Roman Reigns or a Brock Lesnar.
I mean, imagine an Adam Cole, AJ Styles with AJ Styles having the belt, whether it be like the IC type of, a mid-card belt or,
Well, I mean, you brought up that SummerSlam with NXT a few years ago, and it's like, I want to say on a SmackDown or two before, they had him or Adam Cole versus Daniel Bryan, and it was. And
they also had him versus Seth Rollins. So
yeah, and they were great matches. Great matches, and it's just like, why do you have all these guys on NXT who we want to see? I mean, Damian Priest has done a fantastic job. Johnny Gargano seemed like he's been in NXT for years, and it's just like most people don't want to see them called up because Vince McMahon doesn't know what to do with that talent. We've seen it with Ricochet, Bobby Roode.
Go down the list. Pretty
Samoa
much
Joe. I mean,
called up from NXT in the past 5 years. Besides Bayley, besides the women's division, women's division coming up from NXT is really the only ones that have really thrived.
I mean, I guess Owens and Zayn, but Zayn should be fighting for a world title instead of and that's again, I know he's small, but I mean that dude can just kill it on
One
the
of the
mic.
best
I mean,
workers.
his character is fantastic, and he's such a good wrestler too. And it's just like, why do you have,
I mean,
you
you got a
said it,
guy like Finn Balor,
Finn Balor,
Finn
Finn
Balor,
Balor,
Baylor. Finn Balor wanting to go back down to NXT because he's sick and tired of the main roster.
and he's doing better too. That's the thing, is he's having
He is.
fantastic matches on NXT. I don't understand it, because I'm almost starting to get to the point where I'm like, okay, Triple H is going to say something and just take over. I honestly think, if there's a year, I said this with the Punk thing, if there's a year where WWE just like, okay, we need a big change, we need to do something, I think this is the year you go with Triple H as the head. I think Vince McMahon steps down. I don't think he'll honestly do that, but if they want to make a seismic splash and just do something completely different, let Triple H do it. Let Triple H take over. Even if it's just for a few weeks or something, just to see the progress of it. Have Triple H be the guy, and have him build up these stars and build up all these, this fantastic amount of talent that they have that they don't push. It's incredible how wealthy they are. We talked about how good AEW is, with their talent. A lot of their talent is great in the ring and can work on the mic, but they wouldn't make it in WWE. Orange Cassidy would be the biggest afterthought in WWE, but he's such a good character on
I mean, that's the thing that
AEW.
AEW is doing. AEW is, I think, putting more power to the fans and showing them the product that they want to see. And I think it shows directly with Orange Cassidy. A guy like that, look at how over Zack Ryder was.
Yeah.
With the broski thing. They barely put that guy over with a huge put, and I think it's a similar thing where if you put Orange Cassidy, that dude's not even going to be on a dark match.
No, he's going to be, if he's lucky, a Santino 2.0, where he's just the biggest comedy act in the thing and loses every match. But in AEW, he's taken as a serious competitor, where he may not be a world title guy, but he's going to be somebody who will go after the TNT championship at least, or, a tag team championship at some point. Like,
He can put on a good match and a good story. And then that's the thing is, I kind of highlight AEW. You brought up the fact that AEW does it right by fans. It seems like Vince is still stuck in the 90s, where you have 3 or 4 big stars. And I mean, we saw this even in 2000, and then everybody is just else kind of just doing their own thing. Just they'll be on TV one week and then they'll disappear. I think back to the Attitude Era. Obviously, we didn't get to live through. We didn't get to see it live, but Vince Russo did such a good job of every single person who was on the show or on the roster, no matter what they were doing, if they were on TV every week or whatever, had something going on. They were in some sort of feud, some sort of angle. And it's when you look at AEW, I mean, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus are maybe on once or twice a month, but they're putting on good matches. They're getting the chance to shine, and I think that's the greatness of AEW Dark, is even when you don't have all these people on your roster being shown, they're having a chance to continue storylines. Even if it's a small development, you're giving people that chance to say, oh, well, maybe I should check out Dark to see this match. See SCU versus the Varsity Blondes or whatever. Put a random tag team together, and then you see just a small part of that on the next week. And I think that's what WWE lacks is, yes, they have main event, but nobody watches main event.
exactly. And with like main event and 205 Live, like they exist, but like AEW does such a good job of being like, hey, this is happening on Dark. Like, go watch it. They like encourage it. Like they treat Dark almost as important as Dynamite is.
Yeah,
and you see the smaller shows for WWE are treated as afterthoughts. They're not even.
And I mean, with Dark, I mean, they don't promote it to be the second show. They've been talking about putting a second show in for honestly since their beginning, and I think this is the year that we see that. But Dark is still, it has an enjoyment factor. You get to see people like Michael Nakazawa and Brandon Cutler and people that you see on Being the Elite that you don't see on Dynamite, and you want to go see those people. And Justin, we went to SmackDown, what was it, February of 2019, and they were showing 205 Live after, and we were like, yeah,
I don't even want to watch.
don't
Like, I
want
don't
to
know these
stay
guys.
for this.
Like,
Exactly. It's just a joke how. Again, we talked about how AEW is going to be is never going to catch up to WWE, but it's a joke how, to me at least, how AEW handles their shows versus how WWE does. It just seems like WWE is on the same, roller coaster. Hey, we have one good show a month, and we're going back down for 3 weeks, and then hey, we got the pay-per-view, and then one more show, and then it's just the same thing. And AEW is always trying to build the next week. Hey, we got Kenny Omega winning and Sting appearing on this episode, but hey, guess what? Next week, Kenny Omega's appearing on Impact, or
Yeah.
does whatever he does, and it's just
The long-term story building is definitely working better over at
Yeah.
the boys down south in Jacksonville.
it's just like even AEW is run by Tony Khan, who is an avid wrestling fan. He's a fan. That's the thing is, the fans want a fan to run it. Triple H is obviously he's obviously a huge part of the wrestling business and a legend in his own right, but he's a fan too, and he shows that through NXT and with Tony Khan. I mean, he just constantly shows that he's a fan. That tribute show was one of the best things I think I've ever watched as a wrestling fan, and it was done for the fans and just done out of the kindness of his heart. Not saying that WWE wouldn't have done that, but there's been tons of wrestlers who have passed away. Roddy Piper is a great example, and it was a 10-bell salute, and that was it. And people can handle it the way they want to handle it, and WWE has done a great job in handling all that in the past few years. But I mean, that tribute show, it's the highest rated show on Cage Match. It's highly regarded as one of the best wrestling shows ever, and you could just tell that it was just for the fans of professional wrestling. And I think that's what WWE continues to lack, is just putting on shows for the professional wrestling fan instead of they try to put on shows for the sports entertainment fan.
right, and I think you see that a lot with like AEW. Like, you have Tony Khan, who is all the way in charge, but then you have wrestlers who are actually running the product. Where you have Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, like those guys who their biggest thing is like how they interact with the fans, whether it be face or heel. Like, they know what fans want to see and what they don't want to see. And then, I mean, I think you'll see that at WWE at some point, where you had, Triple H going in and like running NXT. Like, you see it there. Like, the potential is there for it. And then, you had guys like Kurt Angle and, Finlay at one point when he was there. I think he got released in the COVID cuts.
Yeah.
But, like, I think eventually you'll see that as you see more wrestling or former wrestlers moving into the more backstage roles, you'll see more of that in main roster WWE. But right now, I mean, it shows with like NXT and AEW being the best wrestling products you can watch at the moment.
So what are the 3 hot take predictions for going into 2021?
Yeah, I was just honestly, I was just about to say, as my co-host says, we're gonna bring this plane in for landing. But yeah, that's a good segue. I mean, let's go with who's your surprise MVP? What is your WrestleMania main event? And oh man, let's think of. We'll go with those 2 first, and then we'll think of another question as we go on. So Noah, we'll start with you. What's your surprise MVP? AEW, NXT, WWE, and what's your WrestleMania main event for this year?
That's tough. On the AEW side, I mean, you got to think Omega. You got to think Omega's got to do big things with this title. He's been looking for that huge push. I think people expected straight out of the gate for him to really do something. Probably be their first champion. I think now that he finally has that, I think this heel side of Omega, I'm curious to see what he does. I think he's going to do good things with bringing the Bullet Club back together. I think it ends in some kind of huge confrontation with someone who's not signed to AEW coming into AEW and interacting with the club. I think that's how that all dissolves. That's going to be a bold prediction. I think in terms of WrestleMania main event, I think realistically McIntyre, Lesnar, and Lee could do it. I think that's something that could go down. And then for hot take, just a random hot take, I think WWE hires Vince Russo again, and then
Really?
fires
Wow.
Russo 3 months later.
That is a hot take. I mean, you're talking scorching right there. Vince Russo coming back into the wrestling world.
Yeah, I think that's how desperate Vince McMahon gets, trying to I think AEW's numbers and ratings are going to keep on climbing, and WWE is going to keep on going down. Vince is going to look for a huge spark to really change things up. You hear how USA is really kind of getting sick and tired of what the product that's being put on their network, and asking for something a little bit more on the edgier side. I think out of desperation they make that hire. It doesn't work out, and 3 months later, firing.
He's gone.
Yep.
Just like he was he's going to go join AEW like he did WCW.
Jeez, dude.
Justin, how about you? Let's see a surprise MVP of the year and WrestleMania main event. And a hot take, too, as well.
Okay, so my surprise MVP, I think Kenny Omega was a fantastic choice. I don't know if he's going to be much of like a surprise pick, but I could see someone like Hangman Page coming in and doing, a massive feud with Omega. Like, they've been building that. Like, it's got to happen at some point.
It has to happen.
And those two just carrying the wrestling world for this entire year would be fantastic.
If he's with the Dark Order, you'd love to see something of the Dark Order versus the Bullet Club, potentially. That'd be a huge face versus heel multi-man tag. That could even go into Blood and Guts, potentially.
Blood and Guts. I was just right when you said that. I was thinking Blood and Guts. That's the time that you use that match.
Yep.
That would be good.
And my WrestleMania main event, it's not so much what I think is going to happen, but what I want to happen. They're doing a takeover before the Rumble, right?
The week after the Rumble.
Never mind. That changes.
So go with it.
I know. Man. So what I was hoping, I didn't know the schedule, but like I could see, like Finn Balor losing the title the night before, going back to the main roster and winning the Rumble main event WrestleMania, because Finn Balor is my favorite wrestler. So I would just love to see him back in the Universal Championship.
Would you like to see the NXT title put back on the line at WrestleMania, like how they did with the women's title last year with Charlotte?
I would love that. Yeah.
Who do you think is the proper guy to go after Finn? Would you like to see Joe come out? And that's
I would love to see Samoa Joe. I think the right guy, it's got to be Karrion Kross right now. Like coming back from the injury.
Yeah, they both went out with the same exact injury.
Yeah, it's got to be him. He's the right guy for that. So I'd love to see that. Or I know we had talked about it. Like we had talked about how DUE will maybe they split ways where you see like maybe O'Reilly gets another shot at Balor and Adam Cole interferes or something like that because he wants to be the main guy, and then you have Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, the tag team versus Roderick Strong and Adam Cole, and then it just breaks down from there, and then it just ends up being the 4-way at some point.
Darn it, Justin. You're getting my wrestling juices going here, man. You're getting me excited, and I know it's not going to end up being that way.
Which there's no way that would be a WrestleMania main event, but
not on Vince's watch.
Yeah, not on Vince's watch, but maybe a WrestleMania match. And then my hot take: AEW Dynamite will beat Raw in a ratings at some point this year.
Do you think they move to Monday? If they do, do you think you don't think they do?
Not. No, I don't think they want to go head to head to them, but I think they at some point this year may pull a week or two with higher ratings than Raw.
Do you think NXT finally accepts the L and moves to a Tuesday or a Thursday night?
I don't think Vince will move NXT. I think he wants to keep them there to have that competition. And
what do you think the numbers are on AEW if they go to Tuesday? Do you think they're up there with Raw every week?
See, that's the thing. It's me and Wayne talked about this. Is if AEW does combine with Impact is on Tuesday. You could put, them on Tuesday. Have Monday Night Raw, obviously. Wednesday is NXT. Thursday you have AEW's new show, and then you have Friday Night SmackDown. I mean, you got a full week of wrestling. I mean, for the wrestling fan,
yeah,
that'd be beautiful. But I don't know. I think their numbers. I agree with you. I think their numbers could beat Raw, but I don't know if it would be on a consistent basis.
No, and I don't think it happened like consistently, but I think if they do something big, they could maybe pull a week or two out towards the end of the year where they
I think that's realistic.
Raw or SmackDown out.
I think the night that they announce a Sting match, I think that upcoming week or whatever show that is, that's going to be. I was expecting the Brody Lee tribute to get over 1 million viewers, but I think the Sting match is what's going to push it over. I think that is where you bring in all those fans from the the old days and the even WWE fans, and obviously you have your AEW fans, but I think that's the night that they
Especially
absolutely
if they
blow
do
it
like
off.
a 2-night event like they have been doing, but instead of doing Wednesdays back to back, if they do like their Wednesday night Dynamite and then they somehow pull a show on like a Thursday the day after, like the Thursday with no competition going with it, so nobody's watching, NXT
Either
as
or.
well. Like I think that would be something that could throw them over Raw,
Yeah.
SmackDown.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is, AEW's just they've done such a good job. I wonder though if you talked about the 2 night, 2 week shows or whatever. I wonder if they're doing it a little too much. I mean, they just had the New Year's Smash, and even I think at the beginning of next month they're having Beach Bash. The new
I like
bash at the beach.
I like the
Yeah.
specialties. I mean,
Yeah, and
it's
I
like
like
a
them
mini
too, but
pay-per-view.
yeah, I like them too, but you can't overuse them. Like
Yeah, I think it's not too big of a, since it's not it feels like a pay per view, but people aren't having to pay for it. Like it's not
Yeah.
like a designated like, so it's Dynamite but with a different name. So I don't think it's necessarily something that's overused or anything like that. But
You
I think
get pay-per-view quality matches. I mean, shit, that the
I mean,
Ray
you're getting
Phoenix versus
pay-per-view.
Kenny Omega match was incredible.
yeah, and I
It's a
mean
burner.
you're getting
It's free
pay-per-view
TV.
quality matches every week on AEW. So
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Oh, man. So I'll end it off here. Let's see. I don't even remember my questions. Hot take,
Hot take,
WrestleMania,
WrestleMania main event, and
surprise MVP.
surprise MVP of the year.
Okay, you guys both went with AEW guys, so I'll try to go with the WWE guy. Oh man, that's tough. I really, really like what Damian Priest is doing. I think he has done a fantastic job in NXT, and I
He was
think,
supposed to be called up, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And then Owens and Reigns shot it down.
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I think this is the time. I think the Rumble is the time that we see him. I like his gimmick. I think he does a good job. I think if you put him, I don't know if you put him in the family or whatever, but put him with a guy like with Paul Heyman and give him somebody who can talk for him, and he can work. I mean, he can go up against the McIntyres and
You
the
think he
Reigns.
could be a good additional piece for the Hurt Business?
I don't know if he could fit in with a stable.
yeah, I feel like
I-
he's definitely more of like a lone wolf kind of guy.
Yeah, he reminds me of, funny enough, the lone wolf Baron Corbin back when he actually
Yeah.
played that character and wasn't Constable Corbin or King Corbin. Gosh,
I think the Hurt Business are kind of need that one wild card player.
They
that
do
you don't know
need
that could
somebody,
really
yeah.
turn on them and really screw them over.
and you even I wanted to say this earlier, but you talked about them all defending each other in the Royal Rumble. I think we kind of saw the seeds being planted for a turn this past whether it was last Monday or this past Monday with Cedric Alexander. I think that they could all kind of do like a Nexus type thing, kind of just throw everybody out and dominate, and then Cedric Alexander just turns on them. And I think that he could use that rub. The being in the Hurt Business has given him a sort of bit of a character restart, and I think that could give him a good push. But yeah, my WrestleMania event, we talked about it, and I thought about it more as we kept going on, but I would really love to see Samoa Joe versus Drew McIntyre. I think Samoa Joe is a surprise entrant. You could kind of do, I don't know if they do the, Michael Cole, Jerry Lawler, where they come off of the announce table and, rip off their suit jacket and jump in the ring, but I think that's something you could do is have him win the Rumble. I mean, have him go after Drew McIntyre and continue what they did in NXT.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they do that though, since he has been on commentary. Like, if he's not there, like obviously he's going to be in the match, but like you don't want to see him come off the booth and go into the ring either. So
Yeah,
I don't know how they'd make that work, but like it'd definitely be something.
Yeah, and then
Knowing Vince, they'll probably be like, "Oh, yep, he has COVID, he's out."
yeah, exactly. He hurt his arm. He's done for the entire year. But yeah, let's see. My hot take.
Hot take.
They did it. They did it for the debate on AEW, but I think I'd love to
Bischoff?
see Eric Bischoff be kind of like an acting general manager for AEW. I think Bischoff looked like he had a lot of fun during that segment with Jericho and Orange Cassidy. I think he is the kind of person that could give them more viewers, because a lot of WCW or AEW fans are WCW fans because it is for, as we talked about, the fan, the professional wrestling fan. I think you bring back more people with that, and I just think he'd work well. I think he wants to be back in the wrestling business, and I think general managers are a little bit overplayed in the wrestling business, but I think he did a fantastic job when he was the general manager for WWE back in 2002 to 06 or 05 or something like that. But yeah, I would really like to see him.
Listen, Tommy, all I gotta say is AEW has the best GM in the biz right now. Already signed. They got Vicky, bro.
Vicky with
Guerrero.
Nyla Rose, yes.
Excuse me. Well, don't mind if I do. I'd like to see her a little bit more on there.
I'm pretty sure they advertised her for next week, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
really?
I thought I saw something. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I saw her. Like Nyla Rose is having a match next week, and they
she's like Nyla's like manager.
Manager, yeah. Gosh, if Vicky became the GM,
dude, listen, that Vicky era was
great.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I was there balls deep into it in the Rumble in 09 because that was the Rumble where Matt Hardy turned on Jeff Hardy, and that was
set up that underrated WrestleMania match between those two.
Listen, the 09 Rumble was a great Rumble. You had Cena versus JBL with HBK as JBL's little side,
Man,
you had him on the payroll.
Throwback. Yeah.
Swagger versus Hardy. You had some good matches.
Man, to be a kid again watching wrestling. I mean, if this stuff was going on right now, if there was, I mean, TNA was good, but if AEW was back on when we were kids, I mean, man, I don't know if I'd ever leave my room, just keep watching wrestling all the time. But that is going to wrap it up for episode 51. Man, it was great to have you guys. We just lost Justin there, but that's okay. Noah, thank you for hopping on, man. I appreciate it. Justin, there we are. Just in time for this. No, you're good. Just in time for the sign off. Justin, I appreciate you joining us here. It was a lot of fun to be able to just shoot the shit with you guys. We haven't done it in a while talking about wrestling, but man, next week is going to be a good one. Deep Six Pro Wrestling comes back with a full watch along of a previous Royal Rumble. We don't know which one yet. Fans are voting on it, but we're excited, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
If you're voting for 09, baby.
Yeah, you're voting for, exactly. Throwing a vote for 09, throwing a vote for all the ones we have listed, man. We're excited, but Royal Rumble's coming fast. It's going to be 2.5 weeks away. It seems a little too far away, but it'll be here soon enough. But that'll wrap up episode 51. Thank you guys again for joining me. Till next week, this is Deep Six Pro Wrestling.